6th day of February, Saint Dorothea, Virgin and Martyr. This day, the Holy Church again places a heroine before us who valiantly fought for religion and for Christ in the year of our Lord 304. It is the saintly Virgin Dorothea who, living at Caesarea in Cappadocia, was not only renowned throughout the whole town for her beauty, but still more on account of her angelic devotion and retirement. Apicius, the governor of Caesarea, an implacable enemy of Christianity, hearing of her, ordered her to be brought before him, and thus addressed her. "I have sent for you to inform you of the emperor's command that you shall sacrifice to the gods of the country." Dorothea answered, "The King of heaven and earth has forbidden me to serve or sacrifice to any other than him alone. Which of the two shall I obey, the earthly or the heavenly monarch?" "Do not speak of your imaginary god," said Apicius. "Sacrifice to our gods, or expect the most terrible torments." "Your torments do not frighten me," replied Dorothea. "What you threaten me with is but little and of short duration. The punishment with which God threatens those who do not adore him is heavy and never ends." The governor, enraged at so courageous a reply, ordered her to be stretched on the rack and to be most severely whipped. As this, however, had not the effect he desired, he gave her to the charge of 2 sisters, called Christine, or as others say, Christa and Callista, who had only lately renounced the Christian faith. These he expected would use all possible means to tempt her to abandon Christ, as they had. Accordingly, the 2 apostates left nothing untried to fulfill the wishes of the governor, but all was in vain. Not only did they fail, but were reconverted themselves by the saint, who painted to them in such glowing colors the great sin they had committed by renouncing their faith, that they bitterly repented and resolved to return to the true church and die as Christians. This resolution they faithfully kept, for, when interrogated by Apicius as to how they progressed with Dorothea, they replied that she was determined to suffer 1,000 deaths rather than renounce her faith, adding that they themselves had done great wrong in forsaking Christ, but that they were now of one mind with Dorothea, and ready to undergo any torment. Apicius, inflamed with rage, forthwith gave orders that both sisters should die at the stake before the eyes of Dorothea. The order was obeyed, and Dorothea, happy to have snatched 2 souls out of the jaws of hell, encouraged them until they both had ended their lives in the flames, and thus expiated their former sin. So soon as this was over, Dorothea was again stretched upon the rack and tortured by having her whole body burned with torches. But the more she was tormented, the more joyful she appeared, because God strengthened her soul to endure. Perceiving that all tortures were in vain, the tyrant sentenced her to be beheaded, which only increased the joy of the saintly Virgin. "O Lord my God," said she, raising her voice to the Almighty, "thou chaste bridegroom of my soul, I thank thee that thou deignest to invite me to the marriage of the Immaculate Lamb." As this was not the first time that Dorothea had spoken of her heavenly bridegroom, a noble pagan youth, whose name was Theophilus, mockingly said to her when she was led away to be executed, "Listen, bride of Christ, send me some apples or roses from the garden of thy bridegroom, of whom thou hast spoken so much." In an earnest but gentle tone the Virgin answered, "Doubt not, thou shalt have thy wish. I will send them to thee." Arrived at the place of execution, the Christian heroine knelt down and once more recommended her soul to her heavenly bridegroom. During her prayer she beheld an angel in the form of a beautiful youth who offered her, in a vase, 3 beautiful apples and as many fragrant roses. She, however, said to him, "Pray go and take them to Theophilus, and tell him that Dorothy sends this fruit and these flowers to him from her bridegroom's garden." After these words, she laid her head down, and her young innocent life was ended by a stroke of the sword. While Theophilus was laughingly relating Dorothea's promise to his friends, the martyr's heavenly messenger approached and presented him, in her name, the apples and roses, as a promised gift of her bridegroom. It being winter, and fruit and flowers nowhere to be found, Theophilus, in amazement, received them, and, inspired by God, cried aloud, "There is no true God but the God of the Christians, and him only will I henceforth worship." Apicius, informed of this, commanded Theophilus to appear before him. Finding him resolved rather to die, like Dorothea, than continue to worship false idols, he gave orders that he should be tortured and beheaded, as the saintly Virgin had been. The tyrant's orders suffered no delay, and Theophilus, after a brief martyrdom, went to everlasting happiness, into which Dorothea had entered before him. During his torture, Apicius cried to him, "Unhappy man, spare your body." But Theophilus courageously replied, "You infinitely more unhappy judge, take pity on your own soul. I care not for my body, if my soul only enjoys the presence of God for all eternity."